to the Free Play Arcade podcast. It is Chris Delp joining you after my brief incarceration after the Christmas podcast. I'm sorry about that. Whew, that was a rough fiasco. I'm glad I work for a lawyer. Speaking of which, it is the CEO and president of Free Play Arcade, Corey Hayden, right beside me.
I mean, I am not Jaden Smith. I am Corey Hayden, live in the flesh.
Yes, and new to the Jaden Smith's Free Play Arcade team is Arthur Williams.
What's good, podcast viewers, listeners, whatever you are?
Evo champion of Garu Mark of the Wolves. He likes when you tell him that.
That is not 100% truthful.
Well, have they ever had Garu at Evo?
It was side tournaments, and one of them I did win. I think it was.
So you are the Evo champion.
Correct.
I mean, let's just leave it there. We'll just call Arthur the Evo champion.
Oh, believe me, I do all the time. And one Ray Upshaw is very angry at me for doing it. Well, see, here's the thing. I told him Evo champion of Garu. That's accurate-ish, right? Ish.
Yeah, with a big ish.
All right. So accurate, and then he was surprised when he's good at Garu.
Right.
Duh.
Well, I mean, I am.
And he said, "Why didn't you tell me? I told you."
The Evo Kazuma Encounter champion. They used that one time in the back of the lab here.
Is that you too, Arthur?
No, that's me.
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I won it last week.
You're the Tubin world champion.
right.
Tubin is a pretty cool game.
It is a good game. It's not as loved as it should be on our floor.
I think it's a lot of fun.
But we are here today to talk about pinball. So it's kind of interesting because it's been a weird part of free play. When we first opened, which was just 3 years ago, pinball was kind of still not really sure where it was going in the modern age.
Open with 6 tables?
Yeah, we had 5 tables. We actually built a little spot for 5 tables thinking that would satisfy everyone forever.
It satisfied me jumping from pinball to pinball.
We do have more pinballs in Richardson now, but we opened it like that just because pinball hadn't really taken off. There was only one manufacturer maybe at the time, with a couple others that were kind of upstarts, and we had no real interest in necessarily buying new pinballs. There was no new great pinballs being made at the time, at least that we were aware of. So 3 years later, many people are calling this the new golden age, if not the golden age of pinball, which is
I happen to agree.
That's a big change.
There's a ton of pinball being made right now.
Well, a ton of good pinball, and they've definitely capitalized on everything that's been learned throughout the history of pinball. So that was kind of where we were going to start. And just by way of background, this is not going to be like a exhaustive review of the history of pinball.
Don't lie to Arthur like that.
It's a shame. I could use the history
and
lesson.
Before we get too much further, I do want to say that you can subscribe to our channel at any of the links up there. I know Matt wants us to tell. If you, wherever you're listening to it now, we are on that service. Subscribe.
Yeah. I believe the new speech we're supposed to give is that if you just start mashing buttons and clicking stuff randomly on your computer, you're going to subscribe to this podcast and receive it for eternity.
Right. I like the one. So it's like up here, and it's like a little slash that way. Don't hit the X. X is bad, but the little slash, minimize. Don't have to look at my face.
We could do like what people used to do.
Just the dulcet tones.
When I play like Counter-Strike or Quake, it'd be like, simply hit Alt F4 to
yes. Cheat code.
Activate the special powers. So anyways, so pinball kind of started as a weird carnival type game that had no electricity. And it was just kind of building off these games where they would use a spring, kind of shoot a ball up, and you'd get some points. And carnivals used to just it would be like a booth like you see at the Texas State Fair or any other kind of carnival or fair type event. And they just have like a row of 5 or 10 of these games. You'd pull a plunger, it would shoot something up, it would land in something, and you might win a prize. And that's kind of like the original essence of pinball. And what was really interesting is, it had no electricity. It was using gravity and a spring.
Right. Is this the 30s?
I mean, it's kind of it's kind of murky because like from the 1890s, there were similar style games.
Right. Pachinko comes around the same time.
Yeah. And there's
slot machines around the same time.
Right. And
it sounds a lot like skee ball to me. Would that be somewhere in the same era?
So like maybe mini skee ball. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All of these games kind of existed, and pinball though was so basic and simple because you could seriously just have a ball, a spring, and a board that had holes in it. Mm-hmm. And whatever it landed in, that would be your points. And it kind of slowly evolved. Before they ever plugged them in, pinball had batteries. Like they were just using for very simple, and they were like, it'd be a lot smarter if we plugged these into the wall. Then we could, actually have noises, bells, sound. And that kind of started what became the electromechanical pinball, which is a pinball that doesn't use circuit boards. And this is like early, 40s, 50s.
And honestly, the sounds that those machines make are the most iconic pinball sounds to me.
Right. Well, they were actually using things like bells inside and hitting the actual bell.
Like those sounds.
And the beautiful sound of the scoring wheel.
Oh, right. Yes.
So that it really, really cool, really complicated. We have no electromechanical pinballs at Free Play. Mm-hmm. And there's there are thousands of them out in the world. And I don't know if there's thousands of unique titles, but there's got to be hundreds and hundreds, maybe a 1,000 unique titles of electromechanical pinball that was made over the course of decades before circuit boards really took hold. And as you can kind of think about that, it was basically the same game being made over and over and over, tweaked and stuff. And so there's a definitive style that is that electromechanical style. And if you compare, there are definitely changes. Things like flippers came around, right?
Right. This is the part that always blows my mind, or blows the mind of people that I talk to, is when you say, no, the flippers. The part that you think of most when I say pinball is the flipper. That's Johnny Come Lately in the pinball world.
Well, and I was looking up, and I don't think I have the game pulled up right now, but it was Humpty Dumpty. So Gottlieb, the original Gottlieb company that was making pinballs back in 1947. They were the first people to throw a flipper on the game, and we were just looking at a video, and I don't think I've played the game. And one of the, let me go.
This is briefly after they made Reactor, correct?
Right. Let me take a quick sidestep. What's really, really interesting here is a lot of my experience with these older pinballs or weird, obscure pinballs comes from the Texas Pinball Festival.
Correct. Me too. In my head, it's just a table with all the original pinball with no flippers displayed. Well,
and so TPF is a major pinball festival here in DFW. It happens in Frisco, Texas. And obviously, and maybe we'll talk about this towards the end of the podcast, we're going to participate in TPF this year.
As we have.
We have in years past. And,
previous year.
But we are kind of they've had to change too as pinball has changed. It used to be the only place to play pinball, right? And you get a nice wide display of everything. And so even today you can go to TPF and you can play these penny machines where you put in a penny and there's no electricity used. And I think they're really cool, and they're obviously collectible and everything up through
it's a bit high dollar for us at Free Play.
Right. we don't even charge a penny. No. But up through these electromechanical machines, that were just, they're all iconic, and they all have very similar sounds and everything. So in 1947, Gottlieb makes Humpty Dumpty. First game he used flippers. He uses 6 flippers, and they're all facing the wrong way. They're not like you would think where you flip like that. It's kind of like just knocking the ball back.
So it flips it toward the hole?
Right. It kind of knocks it back into the play field more than it does up.
Okay.
So
it's 90 degrees at what you would think
kind
it would be.
Yeah. And it's all about extending the game without necessarily being able to play for a long, long, long time.
And there's way more than 2, right? There's 8?
I think there were 6, yeah. And that, people, what happened there, you can kind of see people decided that, wow, that it extends the game a lot. And it starts to get skill into the game.
Exactly. That's really the key there.
So there used to be, pinball kind of used to be, you'd pull it and you could kind of bump the machine, but it was mostly just a luck game. And
famously outlawed as such.
It did become kind of banned because it was kind of like a gambling-ish game.
Your nudging is the only thing that could really affect it. Hard to equate that to skill, even though there is a skill to it.
Well, and you can see
so much easier, especially growing up right alongside slot machines in Vegas, and everything just got.
Well, and you can see how underground casinos could very easily, probably relatively inexpensively, use them just as raw gambling machines, the original ones, because it's just pull and see what happens. They got outlawed, and we use this photo of them it's like a stage photo of them using a sledgehammer to smash the glass of pinballs and stuff. We use that sometimes because it's really interesting to think about it, because obviously the generation in this room right now, we grew up with pinball as it's a hardcore raw skill game.
Yes.
And it doesn't make any sense when someone referred to it as a gambling game. It took me a long time to understand what the heck they were talking about.
Right.
Like I thought
right, it's like the gambling mode on solitaire. I'm like, this is a gambling game?
Well, yeah, like in my head I was like, maybe you like get a friend and you play like $1 a game.
Right, yeah.
I was like, is that what they're trying to stop? I didn't understand. But it does kind of have this past in gambling, and which we still deal with today as an arcade. Images in people's head that somehow pinball is gambling. But
or not skill based.
Right.
Just keep pressing the buttons and have things randomly happen.
Well, there are definitely some players that make it that way.
Oh yeah. You're welcome at Pinball Monday.
Right.
Usually the first or second Monday of the month at Free Play Arlington. Just mash those buttons and pretend it's not a skill based game.
And quarterly,
you're welcome.
in Free Play Denton.
See how
on
it
the
goes.
third or fourth Monday.
And yeah, so we have these decades of electromechanical pinball where nothing's really changing, because how could it? It's just, there's obvious very minor design improvements that are coming along.
Well, I don't know when the first ramp comes out too, because that's a big game changer also.
I'll try to see if I can.
But there are some interesting designs from that era.
Right around the solid state.
Yeah, but there's some really, I don't know. There's some interesting playfields, but yeah, you got they didn't standardize like the width of the flippers, so you had some really like small flippers on wide playfields. So it was like, I hope it touches the flipper this game.
Okay, so yeah, Williams had a game called Nine Sisters that was the first use of ramps, and
53,
which came out before the first multiplayer pinball, which came out the following year. Okay, I'm looking at a photo of this, and I'm trying to find the ramp. Do you see the ramp? Allegedly, this has a ramp. I mean, look at the flipper. It's got one flipper that's backwards. Okay, so I guess there's a ramp somewhere on this.
Possibly.
But clearly, design had a long way to come in the 50s. And obviously, we're not...
Although, bring back that art.
Right.
That art is solid.
We're not at all ragging on these tables.
For Speakeasy Free Play Night?
Right. Because, I mean, truthfully, I would love to be able to run it in electromechanical pinball. And there are museums and things that do try to keep these electromechanical pinballs. And there's proponents that would argue it's easier to run electromechanical than certain solid states. And I bet they're correct, especially on those early 80s solid states, because we've brought a few of those out and it just kicked our butt. Because at Free Play, of course, our pinballs receive on average approximately 100,000 plays a year.
Awesome. So many.
So, which, that's difficult even on a new pinball, but it's extra hard on like Xenon that we had out for a while, or right now we have Black Hole. These early Denton Heat is
aka Hollywood Heat.
Right. It's a reskin of Hollywood Heat, and that's actually mid 80s instead of, I don't even know if you'd call it early solid state. It's just, it's a reskin of a game that wasn't well loved because it just had terrible artwork. All right. So, but
the table's good. The table's good.
Well, I can tell you a little bit.
We'll talk about it.
Working with solid state pinball. There was a 4 million BC board that had an oddity to it where it would the wheel would go and never actually update the score. So I would originally just unplug the machine, plug it back in, and eventually I figured, well, why not just take a look behind the case and see if I can figure out exactly what the problem is. You could see where there was a problem in the EM boards, so you can actually look because everything is just so large.
Right. It is a lot bigger, and things like dust.
Oh no, the mouse has died. Right. Gotta buy a new mouse.
Things like dust literally can just bring an EM pinball to its knees. And so one of the things that I've received a lot of advice over the period of time, and I have a Facebook friend more than anything named Nick Shell, who used to be in the area. He's now moved to become like the head of one of the pinball museums. And he is like an electromechanical just genius. But one of the things that makes him so good is he's just so meticulous. And he'll buy an EM game and he'll go through it, dust every single component, file any of the contacts that need, like just each individual piece. And you're talking about like hundreds to thousands of contacts and pieces that you have to go through. which once you go to that point, I mean, he's probably correct, and he's one of the ones that have told me it's more reliable than your normal solid state. But if you think about the numbers of games we have at free play and how fast things can change and rotate,
man, I don't know if is he volunteering to put them on a free play model? Because doesn't seem wise.
From what I understand, the museum does run on a free play model. They've had to change a lot to kind of adapt to the modern arcade world. And I've spoken to the Vegas Pinball Museum people too as well, that have had to change, because the Vegas Pinball Museum was doing fine, but not like particularly popular. And then this kind of retro kick happened, and all of a sudden they found themselves busy all the time, and it totally changed like what their model was, how fast their pinballs were going to break. And it also had to change them from like a community type minded thing to like, maybe we should take this seriously as like an enterprise. So they recently bought like a $4 million property on the Vegas Strip.
Wow.
And I don't know. I know there were some complications going on, but I don't have the updated thing. But these pinball museums generally run kind of like free play, but they're all pinball. They'll do like a $15 or $20 admission, or a couple $100 membership, and then you can just keep playing. The big thing, of course, is there's no drinks or alcohol or food or kitchens or anything like that. So
is that due to legalities or?
It's kind of a museum, right? So I know, for example, where Nick Shell is, he has they do like beer nights or something, and I don't know what their permitting status is on any of that, but they'll do nights where it's kind of like a night at the museum where they'll have drinks and potentially some food service or nearby food trucks. And those are popular, but it's in general, these pinballs, from what I understand, are not receiving 100,000 plays a year.
I would wager not, yes.
Which I think Arlington now with 24 pinballs, their pinballs should be coming in more like 70,000 plays a year instead of 100,000. But those, when we were at Open Richardson, those poor 5 were getting more than 100. I mean, you'd open and they'd be occupied until close.
Yeah.
And it was madness. Moving into just kind of from the electromechanical to the solid state, it's kind of interesting because if you look through the history of pinball, you see kind of the same players continually popping up. And what we're about to get into is the 80s, which was kind of the start of that first real golden age of pinball. And that's the great debate is, were the late 80s, early 90s the golden age of pinball, or is today the golden age of pinball? So we'll kind of go through. So you're in the 80s, right? And let me pull up my kind of cheat sheet here. But you're in the 80s, and you've got
first pinball table you remember?
First pinball table. Well, I remember being a kid and playing like Addams Family or any of those massively produced things. Because
I think that was the first one I remember like coming out new. Right.
I definitely played an original Black Knight a lot because my parents were great parents and took me to bars all the time, and so in the back of every bar had 2 or 3 pinball tables and a couple arcade games. So I would always be playing those pinballs and trying to learn pinball. But
that was when my parents played. They told me they would take me to the arcade as a little baby, slide me underneath the pinball machine, and go to town.
But yeah, so I mean, in the middle of the 80s, you've got Williams, who was like the kind of the highest end manufacturer at the time. But you've got a lot of players. You've got Gottlieb still out there cranking stuff out, and it's starting to become much more manufactured. Where these pinballs were getting 1,000 units made or 2,000, you start seeing them going to 5, 6, and then like with the Addams Family, it's like 14 or 15,000 pinballs made. Mm-hmm. So it was generally like a big transition, and a lot of interesting players wanted to come in. I mean, you had Sega making pinballs, you had Capcom making pinballs.
That's crazy.
If you've played Street Fighter, the pinball game, you would know it is indeed crazy.
It looked like pinball was going to be like this huge thing forever. Because
they glommed onto something with Addams Family with their mission structures, and like they added a layer of complexity to the game.
And it was a modern movie license that had just come out.
That's true too. That
had done really well.
But they had certainly done that before. You have Star Trek pinball in the 70s and things like that. But like they really fell into a bit of structure that we still see today, where you activate a mission, you complete the mission with certain shots, you get a bonus. I don't know when multi-ball premiered, but that had been long since standard. But it was more complex than just lock 2 balls, activate multi-ball, score bonuses. There's quite a bit more to Adams-Family Pinball.
Well, and these were like, and that's actually one of the more controversial changes that happened, where all of a sudden you've got.
Because I still love Denton Heat, Hollywood Heat,
right?
Without the art. I don't love the Hollywood Heat art, by the way. With you there. But I've been playing the table, and like, yeah, it's simplistic. It does have a ramp. It does have a little motif going.
So, I think the best thing to do, because I've been like the last few minutes trying to figure out the best way to start tackling pinball as we move into the 80s. I think we're just going to go year by year. We're going to just go over the pinballs released in 1980, see if there's any that have been on a free play floor, talk about anything we know about them, and kind of ourselves get through this evolution of pinball into that first golden age. So 1980 is where we're going to start.
Okay.
So this is
Black. Be a lot of no's for me.
Well, that's when Black Knight came out.
Have played that one. Have played it at free play.
That is a free play game. And we bring out still. It was mysteriously one of the most reliable we've ever had.
Was that one still EM or was it already solid state?
No, that's solid state.
Okay. When did the first solid state game start, roughly?
75.
Okay, cool.
So what was really interesting is there's some famous examples of it, but in 75, 76, 77, 78, as they kind of merged over, there's a small number of pinballs that received both the electromechanical release and a solid state release.
Wow.
And they're of varying collectability depending on which one had more made. Because some of them had like 100 EMs and then 1,000 or 1,500 at solid states, and some were reversed. So Black Knight, that was a big one. I think that was, one of them, that introduced things like speech and the double layer playfield. And there's some that also around the same time period entered it. But
and what I remember about it is Williams' game, right? Is yes. that the iconic Williams sounds that are repeated in everything, every pinball, including video games of the time like Joust and
right. Oh yeah,
Robotron.
Williams soundboards were kind of just being used for everything.
Yeah, that's why they all sound identical.
They all sound very similar. The Amazing Spider-Man came out that year, which is every time a Spider-Man movie comes out, a lot of these pop up for sale. It's not a great pinball. It was a Gottlieb game, but to have as a Spider-Man fan, if you had one of those in mint condition in your game room, that's still a really cool thing to have. So you'll see them pop up, and I guess we can also start kind of talking about prices. So.
Look for our Amazing Spider-Man reskin with Mike Morales.
Right. And so that is, I guess I'll just, since it keeps going up, I'll briefly touch. One of the projects we have going on in the back is this slow kind of discovery of pinballs that either weren't liked or kind of pushed aside for potentially not gameplay reasons, and trying to reskin them and bring them out, and give people what's kind of a new experience. And so right now in Denton, we've got that going on with Hollywood Heat.
Yeah.
We've reskinned as Denton Heat.
Yeah, and you can Google the Hollywood Heat artwork and see what the problem is pretty quickly.
And the Denton Heat reskin has gone as far as, obviously the back glass is redone. Certain artwork on the playfield has been redone. Certain artwork on the different images, the different graphics and plastics on the playfield have been redone. And we're about to release a whole new sound pack for this game where we will then be replacing the sounds of the game. So it's a pretty in-depth reskin. So this is one that I've actually... So
I've got a pitch for you.
Okay.
It's an arcade game. We're going to call it Denton's Panic.
Nice.
Maybe even Denton's Panic 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't know where I'm going with it from there, but that's what I want.
Okay, so here's actually one that I've heard about, but I've never seen. An Empire Strikes Back pinball. 1980.
Can't recall it.
Well, it was.
You know what? Probably all of these I've seen at TPF because they seem to have every single game ever made.
Well, so this one was made by something called Hankin, a guy who was making his own pinballs. Basically, it was a production facility, but David Hankin was this guy, and this was his final pinball. It was Empire Strikes Back, and I've never actually seen one in real life. But it's had 4 players, 4 flippers, pop bumpers, spinners, targets, you name it. And
is it a wide body? It looks kind of wide from these images.
Back in the 80s, there was the sizes hadn't or early 80s. They haven't completely, but yeah, it could be a wide body. It looks wider than normal, but not quite as wide as a full-size wide body.
It could be the perspective from looking at it also.
So anyways, I've never actually seen one of those, but that was the 80s. Then there's Williams Firepower, which is Steve Ritchie game.
Was that his first?
I don't think so, but it had to be up there. So
Steve Ritchie, the most legendary of pinball creators, still working to this day. Also the voice of Shao Kahn. Worked in the same office. Worked at Midway.
Well, and one of the interesting
Stern and Midway were in the same office, I believe, something like that.
Right. Well,
wow.
they eventually. So we're going to see a lot of crossover. So,
oh yes.
For example, on Firepower, the programmer of Firepower was Eugene Jarvis. So it was a Steve Ritchie game, Eugene Jarvis programming and sound design that came out by Williams. And look at this though, it had a production run of 17,000. I didn't even know they had those kind of production runs then. But Firepower was clearly a monster hit. Then probably maybe the most popular, Black Knight might be more popular, but Flash Gordon Pinball comes out in 1980.
Based on the movie?
Yes.
And could be based on the comic book.
Well, I assume so, or television. I don't know, actually.
I just want to know if there's Queen licensed music in it.
No, I don't think so. It did use the Squawk and Talk, so it has sound effects. It's a good game. I actually think it's pretty awesome. Then we had Flight 2000, another Stern, and another was Speech. So this year, the big thing was trying to release Speech. I've seen
same here as Berserk, I believe, doing the same thing.
Yeah,
I was going to ask if it sounded like this.
And then Xenon also happened to have Speech. So Xenon and Black Knight have both been free play games. Black Knight survived but got pulled just because kind of it's we have a Black Knight 2000 that's in rotation, and a lot of people prefer Black Knight 2000, which is actually at Lakewood Brewing right now as part of our Arcade Anywhere project.
Oh, cool. I get back out there and play that one.
Our first routed pinball, and it's been doing great. I mean, I got to knock on something, but it's really been crushing.
That honestly worries me. You don't have a tech every day on hand for Arcade Anywhere, so and pinball games being pinball, they seem to
it gets
fall apart under their own weight more than I'd like.
50 to 100 plays a day on busier days.
It's not bad. How much is it to play?
50 cents.
Okay.
4
balls?
So 3 balls, yeah. Okay. So which is good, but compared to the amount of plays ours get.
Oh. Yes.
It's
ours is so outlandishly absurd at how many plays. Like you say 100,000, it's just like that's how is that a number?
Yeah, when I was doing it,
and then you watch it and you know it's true.
Not long ago, that's the lifetime of a pinball generally. Like 100,000 was when it was.
That's a big lifetime too.
And that's a year for us, which is tough. Xenon was just really hard to keep out. It was a launch game at Arlington in really good shape. We bought it in good condition. We fully rebuilt it, and it was still in great condition, and it struggled. We then rebuilt it for our Denton launch, and it's already rotated off at Denton because it's a hard game to keep running. Just stuff breaks. It's older, so Xenon didn't make it. Black Knight is still working, still out there, but I think Xenon, the package, sells a little bit better than Black. I prefer Black Knight as a table, but Xenon, especially with the cool LED kit with the blues and the female voice,
I just have trouble differentiating that and say Bride of Pinball, another female Android based 80s arcade pinball machine.
So let's see.
I've been playing that a bunch lately just because it's pretty cool.
1981.
Sorry, it was actually Xenon you were playing the whole time.
No. Bride of Pinball is a launch game for free play in general. It was awesome.
Correct.
Yes.
So
has it been a launch game in all of them?
No, it didn't come to Denton.
It didn't.
So
has Denton really officially opened until it has the machine Bride of Pinball?
Does it count yet?
Yeah.
We'll have to ask the 130 people that were on the floor with 133 occupancy a few days ago. Yeah. Awesome. All right. So 1981, 5 pinballs came out. And this is still kind of like during pinball being a big thing. I mean, pinball's about to ramp up, but it's kind of interesting to think about. We've got like 5 or 6 pinballs a year coming out now.
This is also arcade games being a big thing.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, this is during the arcade boom.
After what, 78 when I think Space Invaders
this time
kicks it off at 78. I want to
1981.
say
Miss Pac-Man came out that year, didn't it?
Well, that's 82.
Oh, it is?
Miss Pac.
Okay.
But we have a game I've never heard of called Barakura, which was a Williams game. I've never seen it. It's apparently just, uses the same sets as Black Knight, but I haven't seen it before. Then Black Hole, which is an awesome game. One of the best early.
Currently in Arlington.
Yeah, at Free Play Arlington, and we've been doing okay with it. I don't want to jinx it, but
it's definitely had some troubles. I was helping Matt for a while.
Well,
and now it's running great.
It went down hard.
Yeah,
I got it back up. It went down hard again. I got it back up. It went down hard, and every tech spent probably 8 or 10 hours working on it, and then it got back up. And it's been okay since. What's really sad though is what knocked it down was one of the easiest, simplest things, but it just caused kind of a chain reaction. Because if you ever play Black Hole, it's really cool. It's got a lower playfield.
Table inside a table.
Right. So you make your shot, and all of a sudden you're playing underneath the playfield. And now, Black Hole was criticized a lot because back then they didn't have things like LED lighting. So they had those old incandescent bulbs, and the bottom was never easy to really see. With those original
name Black Hole.
You're not supposed to see it. It's black.
That does sound fair.
So we got ours in, and someone had kind of tried to tweak it. And that's one of the best things the techs in Arlington have done on any of their pinballs was they have totally rebuilt the inside of Black Hole using different bulbs and different LEDs and different angles to make it so you can actually see really well down there. And we have a cool little YouTube video for this game that was just a quickie game of the week where I just stepped up there, spent 1 minute playing it and talking about it. But we got the GoPro down there in the lower playfield, so it looks super cool. So Black Hole is
But that's already released, right? So you can find it in our video section up here.
It's on YouTube right now. And then we had, this is actually a free play game that's never been released. And it's super sought after, really, really well loved. Called Centaur. It's a battle game.
I've played Centaur before, but I can't recall in my head.
Yeah, it was kind of not really controversial, but it was really spooky. It was really kind of scary for the time. Really dark. And it has become quite a big collector's item. They didn't make a ton of it, of these units, but yeah, 3,700, and it's a pretty scary game.
That's cool looking. I've never seen it before.
And it is a free play game. We need to get it out. It's just sitting. It's a 1981 game, so it's not like we've been rushing to get it out. But when we do it, it'll be really well beaten. Then one that comes up all the time that was a pretty big run, 8-Ball Deluxe. I don't really like the game. Another Bally. They brought it back. 8-Ball Deluxe had 2 or 3 releases. And then Jungle Lord, which pops up all the time. It's got terrible backglass.
That's with like 4 different levels, and you're jumping over rocks in one level, and then you're stabbing alligators in the water in another level.
You're thinking of a different one.
Oh.
The cool one. Now I can't believe I'm blanking, but I'm sure we'll get to it. All right, so 1982, only 4 pins. So maybe I'm misunderstanding what was going on with Williams, because we haven't seen a lot of Williams stuff coming out. 1982. 2 of these pinballs are considered relatively bad, and both of them have the name Pac-Man.
No. I respectfully disagree. These games are awesome.
I think
unless Michael Beltran is here, in which case Baby Pac-Man is for casuals.
So yeah, one of them was Baby Pac-Man, the famous half video game, but it's not a very good video game. Half pinball. It's not a great pinball, but you put them together and it's really fun.
Yeah, this is actually my first recalled pinball game.
It's up the floor in Richardson, I think.
Yeah, it is. It's on the floor in Richardson, and we don't talk about the game very much, but we have gone through hell keeping it on the floor. And it's really funny, and I love.
Well, it's got every component. It's a video game. It's a pinball game, so it can have all the problems of each of them.
Well, and it's really kind of backwards, because you're kind of. It's running the video game kind of off of more pinball-ish hardware than your normal traditional video game, so it's really a weak. In terms of processing power, weak video game. That's why the graphics are so much worse than like Ms. Pac or Pac-Man even. And it feels a lot more clunky.
Yes. Yeah, the AI is ruthless. Ruthless.
I remember, when we first got it in, being able to get past like the first or second board was like this. Everyone was like, "Oh, thank God, I did it!"
Yeah.
Then that's it. I'm done with the game. Bye.
Yeah, it's like that MK2 level AI where it just reacts to everything, and they literally all 4 ghosts zone you.
Right.
They can turn at a dime. They're all faster than you. So basically, you're gonna die.
So yeah, it's like running away from something that you know is inevitably going to get you, and you just game plan to get as many dots as possible before your death.
Yeah, you basically have to like activate power pills at the bottom area, and then use that to farm the top area, and then escape with your life barely.
So then you can get out, and then you drop down, and all of a sudden you're playing pinball. And I think it's a cool little pinball field. A lot of pinball players have complained that it's in some situations very difficult to die when you're playing the pinball because there's no out holes or anything like that.
There's no out lanes. The thing is a rock, so I don't even know if it can tilt. Nudging is
right. There's no such thing as nudging. Really.
Nudging is really an accomplishment there with a machine that weighs 7 tons. But I will be forever thankful to that game because it actually taught me about the spin of a pinball. Because you're constantly shooting these, not ramps, but they're kind of orbits, outside orbits. And it's basically the only shot. There's a middle shot, and then there's these outside orbits that come, and they put a huge amount of spin on the ball. There's no out lane. So unlike every other machine where you're trying to aim it this way, you're shooting it back that way. And if you take the middle shot, it spins the ball and it just clunks it right down the center.
Yeah, the middle shot is almost too dangerous to deal with.
Because the ball, by design of the table, is spinning in a way that's going to make it reverse and go straight down.
So yeah, you just kind of hit your orbits, and then you can go for a long, long time.
Oh yeah, if you can make the shot, you can just bang, 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 endless combo.
So
just yell tiger each time you do it, Arthur.
So nice. In addition to Baby Pac, is I think underappreciated, but it's Mr. and Mrs. Pac-Man, another Bally title that was a true pinball.
I've never seen this one.
It's at Arlington right now.
You played it in tournament, Arthur. I have proof.
All right, my bad.
Mr. and Mrs. Pac-Man is at Arlington right now, and is
I have no recollection of this.
It's. Mr. and Mrs. Pac-Man's getting kind of hard to keep going because the parts aren't as easy to source. I mean, some of them are fine, but some of them are actually getting pretty difficult.
There's a weird bonus mode in that one where you can actually play a dot matrix version, like a gigantic dot matrix version of Pac-Man where you're just a blinking dot.
And a lot of people don't like that because it's kind of convoluted the way you play. Yeah. So it once you know how to do it, you're like, okay, no, I understand. But
yeah, it's
not obvious. So
right, it's 20 squares, a 20 pixel Pac-Man game basically, whereas the original Pac-Man is way more than 20 pixels in and of itself.
And the scoring in that, you can ramp your score up absurdly fast if you start clearing boards on that Pac thing. It is famous though for having a really cool skill shot, a really difficult skill shot that is a lot of fun.
Sorry, I'm always going to have a problem with it taking away the name Miz.
Right.
Miz Pac-Man.
No, this is subsequent.
Maybe. I wonder if it's the same. I wonder if it's the same though.
But, it was kind of fun because we put out...
Is it his second wife? I want to know.
Yeah, you don't know.
I want to know. They have different first names.
Right. they weren't very straight in their lore creation. But, it was kind of fun. We had Baby Pac and Mr. and Mrs. Pac out together. Mm-hmm. I thought that was really cool. The general population didn't care as much because I love Pac-Man. It's one of those true icons. And some people would say, well, that doesn't mean you should put out the bad versions of Pac-Man. But I don't think Mr. and Mrs. Pac is a bad game. And I think Baby Pac is really, really cool. But I think Baby Pac is infinite, and this would be controversial, but infinitely worse than Mr. and Mrs. Pac-Man. I find Mr. and Mrs. Pac-Man a totally fun, playable pinball game.
As long as we can all agree that Pac-Land is for casuals, then we're going to be okay.
Pac-Land is this kind of scrubby game. Jeez. All right, so then there was Haunted House, which was probably the stud of 1982.
Yes, that game is awesome. Is that 3 tables? Like table and table and table? Okay, it's awesome, and yet I don't ever want to have to talk to a technician of that game as they are murder us all.
I think Haunted House would be a really cool pinball for someone to have in their house that gets 10 days every weekend or something. But it would be there's lots of really cool System 80 games. I think Black Hole is better than Haunted House, but Haunted House is awesome too. Mm-hmm. And I like Haunted House because it just kind of feels like, Black Hole because it kind of feels like they got the theme perfect. Whereas Haunted House, they really went for it too, but I don't feel like it connected as much. But people love Haunted House. It's a great game.
We played one in Austin from a private collection. That was my exposure to Haunted House.
And then, so we're in 1982. The first Game Plan pinball pops up. which was called Mike Bossy the Scoring Machine. Apparently some sort of prototype that was featuring New York Islanders star Mike Bossy. So Game Plan primarily made these like cocktail pinballs. I don't know if this was a cocktail. It looks like it's a regular pinball, but they only made one. So it was a prototype that never made it out.
Wait, so featuring one specific New York Islanders player.
Yeah.
Where is Mike Bossy now?
Mike Bossy. I mean, he's got a Wikipedia page. It's pretty good.
Is he still around?
He is alive. He's 62.
Mike Bossy, come on down from Canada. Let's play some pinball.
He made the Hockey Hall of Fame.
I am now issuing a personal invite to Mike Bossy. I would like to play pinball with you.
I want to know how much he
machines.
got paid by Game Plan for endorsing a pinball.
We have so many questions for Mike Bossy. So we'd like to have him out here. We're going to play.
Want this to happen.
We're going to play some pinball with him. We're going to play some bubble hockey with him. And then we're going to have Mike Beltran play Pac-Land with him and just have Mike Bossy go off on him.
And of course...
just throw the gloves down. Throw the gloves down, Michael Beltran. This is going to be the greatest day ever. Can't wait to see you. Chris at freeplayinc.com. I'm looking for you, Mike Bossy.
So at Mike Bossy, you have been requested to come play some pinball. We'll hook you up with some airfare and a hotel if you want to come play pinball at Free Play Arlington. Speaking of Game Plan, of course, we've made a YouTube video about Game Plan on their video arcade side, right. And we have one of the largest collections, Enigma 2, because there was never a first one, but King and Balloon, Chaos, and stuff like that. That's in the Free Play collection. If you go to the Hourcade or however you pronounce that website where they. Both are Enigma 2 and the King and Balloon are listed as the only ones available in an arcade, which is cool. And I've never seen them in another arcade. And anytime I say that, people are like, look at this one that I have in my house that is a worker. And I'm like, okay, cool. I don't know. Our goal is to get them to the public, and we really love these Game Plan games. So if you're listening to this and you have one in your house, send me a quick email, sell it to me. We'll put it out to the public. I think Game Plan is really cool. But
no, arcade games are to stay in the basement, never to be played.
Never to be used.
We only discuss them on podcasts and with Mike Bossy.
Okay, so I don't know if this is fully accurate. According to this, something did happen in 1983, right? So in the midst of this...
the arcade crash was 85, right?
Well, it started in 1983. Anyways, there's only one, and I just can't.
But the other thing is this is when arcade games are also pushing out pinball.
That's true. You're right. And we can talk really quick. Atari made a couple of pinballs that are all generally considered pretty bad during their run of things. I think they were artistically beautiful, but generally just terrible games. And if you watched the last auction video, you could see it. But I'm trying to pull it up. Okay, so they had the Atarians, Middle Earth Roadrunner pinball. Hercules, of course, is the famous big, huge one that's terrible.
Oh, yes. Yes. But you can play that out in certain arcades. And
my
goodness, is it unplayably bad.
It's a prestige piece for certain arcades.
That's for sure. The pinball is basically a cue ball. It's so big.
It's the largest pinball, and it's really, really not a fun experience.
It's as fun as the world's largest spoon or anything like that.
It is a good thing to take a photo in front of and be like, can you believe this exists? But according to Wikipedia, which is, we're just kind of having fun going through some pinball. Going Nuts from Gottlieb was the only 1983 pinball. I don't know if that's true, but...
Who among us other than Mike Bossy would know?
Well, get this, it says there's only 10 prototypes made. That's why I've never heard of this game. So 1983, not a great pinball year.
Wow.
1984, things seem to be getting back to normal. You have some really cool stuff. Attila the Hun comes out. Space Shuttle comes out. El Dorado City of Gold. Something called Laser Q, which was apparently a billiard. The game features a billiards-oriented futuristic science fiction theme. From Williams. They made 28 units. I don't know if I've seen that. I'm sure I've seen that. It's probably just forgettable.
So it's not like licensed about the 16th letter of the alphabet?
No. But Space Shuttle is a great...
Of the future, of course.
Great pinball.
Yes.
And so that came out in 1984. Till the Hun was a game-playing game.
Back when like all of our society was based around the romanticizing space shuttles, like specifically the space shuttle.
And then El Dorado, City of Gold, Gottlieb, Wedgehead, cool stuff. Good pinball. So 1984. Still going. 1985 had 2 great games. Guys, I don't know if this is a complete list, but these are at least some of the hits that came out in 1985.
This can't be a complete list because there had to be more than 2 games coming out.
So
some of these years.
1985 is Williams Comet. So I know for a fact we're about to see Williams start ramping up production, but Williams Comet, people really trashed this game, and it was part of kind of this trilogy that I think is like awesome. And we've had the next game in the trilogy, Cyclone, out at Arlington before, and I thought it was really cool.
Yeah.
We had some minor issues crop up. It got pulled in. Literally no one ever complained that it was gone. So I think Comet's great.
I like all the games. I mean, I enjoyed Cyclone. I definitely enjoyed Cyclone.
Well, and Comet, I really feel like...
I remember playing Comet, but I can't recall it like I can Cyclone.
It's a lot like Cyclone, just not as complex.
Okay.
But... the thing about Comet, I think, is probably one of the best starter pinballs, period. It's late enough that parts are pretty freely available. It is pretty decent, and they're super inexpensive. I mean, I've seen them in good shape recently selling around $1,000. So if you're trying to get into like just your home use introductory pinball, that's great. It's a great machine to learn around and stuff before you start paying, $5,000 or $6,000 for the pinball you really, really, really want. Then, of course, the Mark Ritchie Sorcerer, which actually is in the free play collection. We've never brought it out. Another great pinball. Did
you say Mark Ritchie?
Yeah.
Related?
Yeah. I'm sure they're brothers, I think. Yeah. Mark Ritchie had some really great stuff. Unfortunately, he is one of the people that never left the arcade world and has been kind of instrumental in things like Incredible Technologies and Raw Thrills that we try not to mention. No, Mark Ritchie made a lot of good stuff for a bit. And yeah, him and Eugene Jarvis were friends, and Raw Thrills is a thing. Okay, let's get brighter. Let's have more fun and not talk about Raw Thrills.
Less Raw Thrills.
1986, High Speed. Great.
Wait, there's a High Speed 1?
Yeah, it's amazing.
I thought it was like a Lemming 2. It's High Speed 2 to Getaway. You mispronounced the game. I've never played High Speed 1.
And I have. It's great. It's.
Does it have a circuiting?
No.
I don't want to hear about it. The Getaway High Speed 2.
Yeah, it's. Getaway was very similar, but it does not have that supercharger thing.
Yes. I'll see you guys later. I'm going to free play.
Then 1986 also had one of the greatest Williams games ever released.
Launch title for free play Richardson.
It was a launch title for free play Richardson. Pinbot.
Yes.
The first.
I have not seen it anywhere. I'm sure it's been places. I suspect it's somewhere now, but in all my travels, I have not seen another Pinbot on a public arcade floor.
Yeah, it's hard.
I'm sure it's out there somewhere, but
the visor on Pinbot, if we were charging 50 cents a game, it would still be out. But on free play, getting hundreds a day kind of poundings, it has this.
It was fun. I played it 100 times a day. It was a
great pinball. You'd earn it. You'd activate the visor, and this visor would slowly go burr, and open up. But the visor going down, keeping it aligned was really hard because people will just keep shooting while it's going down.
Yeah, have you played this, Arthur?
Yes.
Yeah. Reminds me of the Tron Legacy. That's a kind of a homage, I guess.
This is the earliest pinball game that I remember playing as a kid.
Oh, nice.
I had a fixation for it. They had it at the local timeout because they had it at rental places for Nintendo. So I rented it, and I really wanted to play the pinball game. And my mom would occasionally give me a couple quarters to play, and my balls would sink immediately. And
your mom's angry.
Yeah, I could not play pinball, but I
never
really
let play
wanted
pinball again.
to.
Only fighting games.
There weren't fighting games yet, but
that's what she said anyway.
Yes,
they will have to invent a genre for you to be able to use my quarters again.
So yeah, I just want to make sure
that's my first pinball memory.
I clear up because obviously this is missing a lot of stuff from the years because out of nowhere, we went from having no Williams titles to only having Williams titles on these lists. So thanks for nothing, Wikipedia. But of the Williams releases, we had in 1987 Big Guns, hugely produced, really good. F-14 Tomcat.
At Arlington.
I think it's a really fun game.
I don't know that I've played it yet. I mean, I've been in competition with it, so it's been there.
I played it after I saw it,
and then
but I can't tell you much about it.
Data East Laser Wars on here, and the Gottlieb Victory popped up on here. But one of the things we have skipped, and that's how I know we're missing stuff, is Hollywood Heat. Came out in 1986, and we have not yet talked about it. The early Gottlieb System 80 games were just fantastic, and that included Black Hole and Haunted House. Two great pinballs, and what I can see now is we're kind of in the all-star list because there were like 25 games that came out in 1980 that we didn't talk about. So, and we didn't even get to talk about Q*bert's Quest, the 1983 System 80A game that is terrible. But we did talk about...
Is there a puzzle part to this?
Yeah, I think so.
I talked to Warren Davis, and he said he doesn't consider it a puzzle game. He considers it a maze game. But I still
kind of see it.
Yeah, it was not a...
He made a good case for it. And being as he is the lone programmer of the game, I guess he has a point. But
again, so here's actually what happened. A lot of these games were so not notable, they didn't even get Wikipedia pages that so they're just on lists. Anyways, 1986, we want to make sure we take a quick pit stop because we didn't talk about Hollywood Heat. So Gottlieb in the late 80s, they just decided, you know what we're going to do? We're going to make a ton of crap.
What sells?
They're going to just, it's almost amazing to me. So they have this System 80B. It's this very robust system. No one would call it great, but it's very robust. And they just say, let's put a million different... We're not going to pay money for licenses, really. Let's just put a million different generic designs out of this, and that's going to be it. Now, the interesting thing is there's actually some decent pinball mixed in here, and so we're going to take a quick pit stop and talk about Hollywood Heat. We mentioned it earlier in the podcast. Hollywood Heat was a game that was released in 1986. It's a System 80B. And it had the worst backlash that has ever existed for pinball. Potentially, I mean, there's some other really crappy one. Hard Bodies was pretty bad.
Yeah, there's some competition there. There is a beauty contest that I want no part of.
Right. So Hollywood Heat, it ended up having the one of the programmers or someone involved in the production of Hollywood Heat posing next to two really strung out looking models. On the backlash for Hollywood Heat, and I mean, please feel free to go ahead and look it up. It's awful. And one of the things that's been happening since people had graphic editors is changing their Hollywood Heat backlash, and merely just changing it to the words Hollywood Heat was a huge improvement.
Yes, because the game is very playable. It's a fun game on the play field.
Well, it's a fun, reliable game, and Gottlieb kind of knew what they were doing. It's just, oh my gosh, did they not have any idea on their art direction? So Hollywood Heat is like a Miami Vice knockoff, filled with palm trees and absurd cars and stuff like that. And it's really unique. It's got all sorts of cool shots. It's got a little mini playfield to the left.
A ramp onto the playfield.
Right.
Like you literally just shoot the ball.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. Like I've played it a bunch at Denton when I've been up there, and I've had a lot of fun playing it. I'd never messed with it before.
It's an easy game. So it's a lot of kind of fun just to sit there and relax on and just see what happens. And it's been very popular in Denton, obviously, because we reskinned it Denton Heat. We've got the famous Denton courthouse and a bunch of really pink stuff going on.
You guys just wait till you see Denton Panic. That's going to blow your mind.
It's coming.
So
just going to remove slowly pieces of the Denton backdrop artwork.
And during this period, Gottlieb, so I'll just tell me any of these besides Hollywood Heat that you're aware of. We're going to go Bounty Hunter.
No.
Rock.
No.
Tag Team Pinball.
Wait, Rock, is that a racing game?
Rush the Rock, no.
Oh. No to Tag Team Pinball. Though Michael Beltran is inquiring right now.
Raven. Hollywood Heat, we were just talking about. Then, of course, the sequel/conversion kit for Rock called Rock Encore.
That's Rush the Rock, sir. Rush the Rock.
A game called Genesis, and a game called Spring Break.
Wait, Genesis. I think I owned... No. I think it's something else.
Fun fact, Spring Break is also terrible, but we free play acquired one because it felt like a spiritual kin to Hollywood Heat. So I think
are you going to reskin it with all Pauly Shore from
So if you look at the Spring Break Backblast, It's got 4 or 5 photos from Spring Break, and it has a knockoff Spuds McKinsey. It's glorious in how terrible it is. But one of the photos from Spring Break that's on these Spring Break photos is just these kind of chubby dudes hanging out. And I love it so much because these guys have no idea that they're on a pinball machine that was made in the 80s, and they're just sitting there hanging out on a beach or something, and that was it. They're now on a pinball forever. But yeah, Gottlieb was making some crap. Gold Wings, Monte Carlo, Arena, Victory, Diamond Lady, Big House, Robo War, Excalibur, Hot Shots. Sounds cool. But I honestly don't know.
Excalibur, yes. And Arena, no. Arena is Elder Scrolls 2, right? That's what I'm thinking of.
No, that's the first one. Second one is Daggerfall.
And it would take them a while to get good. I mean, they got...
So I was really good at the lockpick mechanic in that pinball table.
I mean, we'll go ahead and rip on Gottlieb for a little longer. So they'd
Excalibur looks kind of interesting. I don't know. It's got a lot going on anyway.
They kept making pinballs, but by the early 90s, there was more money coming into pinball because Williams was over there making great stuff. And
early 90s, I mean, we're talking about Adam's Family. When that starts, it just blows up the industry, right?
And that's what. And that was Williams. But let's talk really quick. Williams, they kind of led into a whole weird merger. There's WMS Industries. Mm-hmm. We'll get through that, but let's go ahead and knock out Gottlieb just while we're here. This has no structure, but they made a bunch of early 90s pinballs, and then they started just getting licenses. And one of the most popular games they made, and it's debatable how good it is, was Super Mario Brothers in 1992. That was a game that was on the free play floor for a while. I think it's pretty cool. It's a fun game. One of the interesting things about it is they made a version of it.
It's the sister table of the wonderful Street Fighter game, I believe, correct?
I don't know. I mean, it did come out right around the same time, but
I think they have the same wonky angle.
I would argue that Super Mario Bros. Is a much better table than Street Fighter 2.
Well, I won't debate you on that one.
and I actually think that they did the license pretty good justice. The artwork
the sounds are really authentic.
Compared to what Street Fighter 2 was, which they just had terrible artwork, terrible everything.
Yeah.
But what was cool about Super Mario Bros. Is they released this Super Mario Bros. Mushroom World, which was a pinball for Chuck E. Cheese, for kiddie arcades. And I was 8 at the time. I remember playing this at these kiddie arcades, and they had a pinball that dispensed tickets, and it was this little thing, and I used to think it was the coolest thing, and I never saw any other kid play it, which is interesting. I don't know. They'd go on to make games that are notable but not well loved. Gladiators, cool. I mean, they really went on these early 90s things. Gladiators, Wipeout, Rescue 911, Stargate, Shack Attack. There was the Frank Thomas's Big Hurt, Waterworld, Barbed Wire.
What were they thinking with these licenses? You do not make an athlete's pinball game without Mike Bossy. You don't. I'm sorry, Shaq. I love you. I love your 16-point smile, but you're no Mike Bossy.
Well, and a lot of these are still considered some of the worst of the solid state pinballs, despite coming out in the mid-90s. Though I would argue that I think both Rescue 911, which is not easy to keep maintained with its helicopter that picks up the ball and you can control when it drops the ball. And I think Teed Off Teed Off has the unfortunate. Is
it the Caddyshack knockoff?
Yeah.
Does Rescue 911 have William Shatner on the backdrop? That's what I need to know. I actually do remember playing this game when I was at a wedding in the Appalachian Mountains in Missouri somewhere. I swear it was the set for Friday the 13th.
I'm not seeing
They had
William
Mishap.
Shatner.
I broke my record, and then they had Rescue 911 based on the TV show of William Shatner's middle career.
It's really cool because Rescue 911 has an actual helicopter that picks up the ball.
How many lives were saved by the Rescue 911 pinball machine?
Who knows? Probably
I need
1
a
million
number.
or 6 million.
How many lives were lost because of it?
We don't like to talk about those. They had it coming.
So Gottlieb was kind of a joke there. But Tito gets compared to No Good Gophers, which is a better pinball. So, that is kind of where we are. And now we'll shotgun through a few Williams games really quick to get caught up to the current. So Williams, on the other hand, was in the backdrop making really good stuff. Like we were just talking about in 1987, Big Guns, F-14 Tomcat. Generally considered better than just about all of those Gottlieb titles. Though I will say, I do think Hollywood Heat's a pretty awesome game. And then there's Bonsai Run, famous for, it's the Williams with the vertical backlash that's a whole game. We've had one in the collection, and we could not put it out because the reliability was not good.
So vertical, like, say, NBA Fast Break from a few years after that?
Kind of, but way more like pinball, playing it up there.
Which game is this?
A Bonsai Run. Really cool Williams game. Then Cyclone came out, which we were talking about, great. And then Taxi, which is a Mark Ritchie game, but is probably the most requested that we've never released.
Bonsai Run. I have another memory of trying to play this and never figuring it out. It's not the same ball on the bottom play field as on the top glass, is it?
I don't think so.
It's not with NBA Fast Break, I'm sure.
Well, no, Fast Break's different.
It's like a little light basketball thing that goes flying.
Mm-hmm. I've only played it a few times, and now I don't know what it was. We had it in the collection even, but I don't know. I've never taken it apart.
I'm sure it can't be. That'd be ridiculous. But yeah, I wanted to play this as a kid, and because of Pinbot, was not able to.
So...
Never forget Pinbot.
I still want to play Pinbot.
Williams Taxi.
The machine forever.
One of the best pinballs ever. A great pinball. And was during the time that Williams was becoming WMS Industries.
There's another Pinbot game in that era too.
Yeah, it's not called Jackpot.
Jackpot. That's the one. Every time I've gone to a non-free play, a free play knockoff place, in any place, they always have Jackpot. I don't know if that's like your I'm going to knock off free play arcade starter kits.
Well, so Jackpot
but you must have passed on every Jackpot ever.
Jackpot is kind of, I don't think it has very much historical significance, and I don't think it's a great pinball.
Well, it does, because in 2018, it suddenly had a massive resurgence where it was in every arcade except for one in the DFW area.
It's a pretty inexpensive pinball that has a theme that is cool-ish.
Yeah, the theme is just like that game that got Arthur Williams banned from pinball.
Crying shame.
So,
now if it was, you don't know Jackpot. Now we're talking, baby. Reskin it.
Around this time, WMS or Williams buys Bally Midway, and Williams would release, and I don't know what caused them to decide which game was a WMS game, called a Williams game. It probably depends on the different production stages, or a Bally release.
And this is where they open up a gem.
Right. And they so this was kind of like the late 80s were a weird struggle period, especially for those Chicago arcade companies. So we'll go ahead but this is when Williams really sets the world on fire. WMS Industries, Bally, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, this is after the arcade crash, so
right. Yeah, this was kind of like when arcades were trying to refine their footing.
Right after the golden age ended.
Kind of, and yeah, it was all of a sudden pinball becomes a big thing. So let me see if I can find a good list so I can, or
at least a stable thing, as you have the arcade industry, shifting through things like eSWAT and all the nonsense until Ninja Turtles comes out and when is it, 89, something like that.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden things are
viable, at least
moving fast. So Taxi was technically one of the first WMS releases after Williams had changed their name to WMS. 1989 comes out. You get Black Knight 2000, a Steve Ritchie game, one of my favorite pinballs, period. Elvira and the Party Monsters is a midway release, but this is during the period that they're being acquired by what Williams had become, WMS. So you've got pretty much one really good pinball manufacturer, kind of combining, coming into one thing. So Elvira and the Party Monsters, great game, well loved. Scared Stiff, I think, is generally considered the better of the two, although I feel like we should put an Elvira and the Party Monsters out pretty soon. And then let's see. Then Gottlieb was making some terrible games.
Arthur, first Elvira game you played?
The one that we have at Denton, I remember playing. I think it's
Scared Stiff.
Scared Stiff.
First time you saw Elvira, do you remember that?
The first time I saw Elvira?
Yeah.
I must have been a kid.
I remember seeing her in. My dad watched that stuntman show, Fall Guy.
Oh, she was in Fall Guy?
She makes a guest appearance, of course, as Elvira.
Right. Yeah. I remember hosting USA Up All Night movies at some point, but
I think that's how she got her start.
I don't know if that was the first time I saw it.
But not specifically that, hosting late night movies.
Yeah.
Right. So in 1989 also had the great Pat Lawler game, Earthshaker. All of these we needed to probably get to free play. Then 1990, things started getting really good. Diner comes out, Funhouse comes out, Whirlwind comes out.
Funhouse. Featuring the, not the voice of Steve Ritchie, Shao Kahn as the clown. No, the voice of Ed Boon, Mortal Kombat creator, as the clown. That's the voice of the clown, is Ed Boon.
So yeah, you had all of these people
they all worked in the same building.
Chicago, making games.
They all worked in the same building.
They're all owned by, the same company at that time.
Yeah, they liked Steve Ritchie's voice, his gravelly voice for Shao Kahn, and he is the voice of Mortal Kombat entirely. Finish him. That's him. That's Steve Ritchie.
I'm looking at this flyer, and it's pretty creepy.
It is very creepy.
Watching you with the...
Funhouse was definitely a free play game for a long time, and you get back out. It was at Richardson for like a year and a half.
Very iconic pinball table.
Yeah, one of the best ever. Mm-hmm. I think some of the shots are a little more wonky.
Ed Boon's voice acting on that is also incredibly creepy, as he has a high pitched, delivery of it all.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I don't know.
Oh man, goodness! All right, we're gonna stop the show for a little while. We're gonna spend the next 4 hours teaching Arthur how to play.
I'll come back possessed by this ventriloquist dummy.
Right.
Well, yeah. So Funhouse is a top 10, 15, 20, maybe 30 pinball, depending on, we got to talk about all those new ones. But
secret lock behind his head. You can lock a ball back behind there if you half hit the orbit.
But you're definitely hitting the new golden age, or the original golden age at this point. Because seriously, 1990, Funhouse, Whirlwind, Diner. 1991 hits, you get the Machine Bride of Pinbot, which we've been talking about. Everyone loves that. Terminator 2, not the best pinball, but one of the most iconic. It was everywhere.
I remember playing that as a kid.
And it's been out at free play.
2 locations at once.
Yeah, now it's a none. For no ill will reason. It's really just the Terminator 2 is built on these huge long shots.
I'm waiting for the code update of Terminator 2 to improve the scoring system.
It does kind of feel then we'll be good. Kind of weird. So 1992 hits, and you get Addams Family.
Boom. World changed.
Love that game.
And that was just no one. I mean, they made more than 20,000 of these pinballs.
It's the most produced pinball machine, isn't it?
I don't know. Probably.
I remember hearing that.
It's way up there. I mean. I was really shocked because we had that one earlier in this podcast that had a 17,000 production run. I was like, I don't even, what? Because I thought that Addams Family was one of the few that got into those numbers. But 1992 has Addams Family come out, Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, love that.
Right.
Love that.
Getaway
it's in Richardson still. Love it.
Getaway High Speed 2.
The only getaway pinball machine ever made. All right.
And Fishtail is I'm going to say, the most underrated pinball of all time.
That's a great table.
And then...
nothing else in 92 that is meaningful could have ever happened to arcades.
Whitewater, which has never been out on a free play floor, but is another just stud of a pinball table. And this is not a stud of a pinball table, but it's a personal favorite. We put it out at Denton. One of my favorite introductory pinball tables, Lethal Weapon 3. I just think it's hilarious. I just think it's a lot of fun to mess around on. And it captures kind of that era of pop culture so well.
This is going back to Corey's long history of Joe Pesci fetish
right.
with arcade and pinball machines.
It's the only reason I became an attorney. So 1993 hits, we're still deep in this golden age. Indiana Jones, which there's a lot of Indiana Jones, but
93?
Yeah, the good Indiana Jones, 93.
Is it based off of the first movie?
Right.
Or just the franchise? Or?
Well, 93 is
a franchise.
That's. I think that may be when the Last Crusade came out.
I think the Last Crusade was a couple years old by then. Internet would know.
I don't know. Stern would really release a different Indiana Jones. It's not quite as loved or as good. But this was a great game. So we're in 1993 still. Jurassic Park, which was an okay pinball. Data East. Data East is there making better games than Gottlieb.
Why didn't we have a dinosaur eating a ball?
Right.
That's gonna.
But 1993 also happened to have two that are still considered two of the best ever: Star Trek: Next Generation and Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
Twilight Zone.
And all those clearly inspired by Addams Family. You have that mission, thing. Now it's hitting pinball standards to where you don't release a machine without it.
Right.
By this point, I was no longer quite as reliant on my mother to stand over me and give me quarters. So we were playing mini games of Star Trek Next Generation.
Yeah, the previous year, fighting games had actually been popularized.
So
Arthur allowed back into arcades after a quick 8-year hiatus.
But Star Trek and the Addams Family are probably the two pinball machines that I played the most. So I would as a kid. So I'd wager that was about then when I was playing a lot of Street Fighter 2 also.
I remember loving those tables. And loving to see them hit the floor, right? And they do still hit the floor. You get them out. We get from this era a lot.
Right.
And, as a tournament organizer of pinball now, I've learned to really dislike the number of free balls all of those games give.
Yeah, that's true.
Still love the Creature from the Black Lagoon. But it'll just give you 7 free balls.
You can play for a long time.
Tales from the Crypt. We're about to take it out of Pinball Monday just because every game lasts,
Well, Tales from the Crypt isn't a great pinball. It's just iconic.
Mm-hmm.
It's
I like the show.
Right.
Yeah. It's a modern at the time version of Twilight Zone, but
and then we get to 1994. You have World Cup Soccer, which despite its theme is still considered and still well sought after by as one of the better pinballs of all time. It was a good pinball, but that's kind of a polarizing sport. I mean, especially in America where people are like, why would I have a soccer game?
Right. We can't play a soccer pinball game. We have Hollywood Heat. Come on now.
And then maybe one of my favorites and maybe one that is just absolutely unfairly not well known is The Shadow came out in 1994, probably just because of the license that it's attached to a weird Alec Baldwin vehicle. But The Shadow is at Denton and it is amazing.
No, that game is super cool.
And 1995 hits. So we're actually probably starting to come. I mean, we're still going to have some amazing pinballs, but we're probably going to start easing our way out of the great era because there's a lot of pinballs being made here, including maybe the best ever, Attack from Mars. Mm-hmm. We have Jackpot come out. Not the best ever. I mean, the thing is, if it wasn't part of that trilogy, it might even be historically better loved, but people loved Bride of Pinball. It's a beautiful, amazing...
Oh, yeah. Just the practical effects of Bride of Pinball as you, set the eyes of the android and the whole, thing rotates, and then you make the... you actually build, in some way, a physical representation of this android in the table. Really, really innovative.
And then we also have Theater of Magic come out that year. One of the best ever.
Another great one. Again, practical effects. Right. Really amazing. Taking the magnet, sticking to the box, the magic box, trapdoors coming up. You have
the magnet effect, I think, is just the most fantastic thing about that game. It's incredible.
There's so much.
I've played it a lot since we put it out in Richardson.
Mm-hmm. 1996, you had Scared Stiff come out. Another all-time great. And Tales of the Arabian Nights. Which we've never put out, but is probably the best pinball that hasn't been featured at Free Play, maybe. Really, really absurdly good. 1997 had some cool stuff come out, including maybe what I think is probably the best ever, Medieval Madness.
Oh, that was fun.
I mean, Medieval Madness is just an absolute amazing pinball, but you can see the production numbers coming down at this point. They're still putting a lot of investment in. These pinballs are expensive. But, whereas you had Addams Family pumping out 20,000 units, Medieval Madness gets which is, quite possibly the best pinball ever, gets a production of 4,000.
Yeah, that's a desert island game right there.
Right.
Just take that with you and you're going to be good.
And a game that's well loved, but kind of for a lot of different reasons. Circus Voltaire came out in 1997. It's gorgeous. People like it fine, and it's a good pinball, but it's mainly loved because it's just absurdly beautiful.
I haven't seen that one.
And then No Good Gophers came out, which I was talking about earlier. Is one of the reasons Teed Off gets kind of just trashed. Teed Off, I think, is a perfect beginner's pinball, but No Good Gophers is a really good pinball with a similar Caddyshack style theme. And then one that's not probably the best ever, but one of the coolest ones I think we ever had out, NBA Fast Break.
It's
a 97 pinball.
It's an interesting, because it's a head-to-head pinball machine. So you can link two pinballs together and have you have a game, a basketball game. So you choose your teams. Yeah, and you literally have a timed game head to head against another pinball machine, which is an interesting concept.
It's pretty
whether
cool.
It works, you know.
So 1998.
But I will say, Orlando in Arlington did manage to defeat Michael Beltran at NBA Fast Break so hard he shattered the backboard. Literally, I have pictures. It is in the community group.
It's true. One day,
fantastic.
Well, and I don't let our games go down, right? So I was on the phone with Orlando, and I forced them to come up with, when we didn't have the exact back glass to replace that on hand at Arlington. We had to replace a day or two later. But I forced them to come up with an improvised solution to make it still work, which involved a lot of tape. But that game was up and running again the next day after we vacuumed all the glass up. And we used enough tape to hold it together until the new glass came.
I was
that sounds terrifying.
Horrified for my friend Orlando, who had just shattered the backboard of this classic pinball machine. And I just knew I had to take the best picture of all time. I was like, this is awful, Orlando. I'm so sorry. This is the best picture ever. Thank you so much.
And so 1998, you can definitely see, Data East falling out. In the middle there, Capcom made some pinballs and Sega made some pinballs. Nothing of huge note. So 1998, though, two major releases, Champion Pub, which is really cool pinball that we've never featured. It's not I don't think it's an all-time great, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
And then Monster Bash.
Punching bagging it.
Monster Bash is, in fact, an all-time great.
Yes.
And then...
Played it just yesterday.
No one really knew where pinball was going to go. 1999 happens. And we are about to wrap this up. We'll kind of do... This is the back... kind of the background of pinball.
Continuing coverage of the second hour of our 7-hour pinball podcast that we did not tell Arthur we were doing.
But that's fine.
We set this all up, though, because we're going to say some controversial stuff about the new pinball. So we really wanted to lay a little bit of a foundation where we discussed our love for these classic pinballs before we say things about newer pinballs that may or may not be controversial. So 1999, that was a big, weird year because Pinball 2000 comes out. It was Williams, WMS, whatever they were at the time, kind of grand idea to save pinball, which was let's put monitors, let's put arcade screens in pinball and have it.
Back when the move was to put everything in hologram form for some reason.
So it was to add. You could add a ton of depth. This is the theory, at least. You add depth by having game modes, and so they made two Pinball 2000s during this period, and. One of them was good. Revenge from Mars.
Yeah.
One of them was bad.
Episode 1. Everything bad.
Star Wars Episode 1. And
because nothing with the name Episode 1 could ever be good.
It's kind of funny because the new memes for Episode 1 have increased the value.
I will say
the
pinball game definitely better than the movie.
So, and in the background in 1999, one of the major things that's happening for pinball is Gary Stern, who had been running Sega's pinball division, buys Sega Pinball and renames it as Stern Pinball. And that year they released Harley Davidson, which was one of the... it was made mostly by Sega, but it was technically a Stern release. And there was also the South Park came out.
Yeah, which I remember when that one came out.
Which was also... made by Sega, but it was actually a Stern release after.
Yeah, and that's where I first played it, was in Sega's GameWorks arcade.
And so that is when Gary Stern, and Gary Stern had of course been in the pinball world, arcade world for a long time, but he consolidated the enterprise, which at the time I would assume Sega is losing money making pinball, not really interested in continuing it. So Gary Stern purchases it, and
Sega was everywhere in that era too, because they owned GameWorks, which they were sinking money into. The internet kaboom had just happened.
Dreamcast had just come out.
Right. Oh, yeah, after the 32X and all of that debacle.
And Sega went from console geniuses to I mean, they're making good consoles, but they're not they're not making any money at consoles anymore, and things are drying up fast. So they were probably trying to figure out a core business again very quickly. Which brings us, that's the end of the first episode of our pinball discussion that we just impromptu decided to do today. So we now we're in 1999. Stern has now become a company. They've released South Park and NASCAR or what the heck was it? Harley Davidson. Mm-hmm. So they've released South Park and Harley Davidson. We will pick up with Stern in existence. I will say Revenge from Mars, when it came out, was considered likely to be the last good pinball that ever came out. So that's where we'll pick up the discussion on the next episode.
Special thank you, Mike Bossy.
Mike Bossy.